Good morning. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission Advisory Review Panel. We're convened this morning to review applications from Region 4 for the fiscal year 2024-2025 Organization Support Grant Program. I am Andres Sanxonera, Deputy Director of Operations for the Indiana Arts Commission, and I will be serving as your facilitator for today's review panel. Today is Thursday, April 27, 2023, and it's 10 a.m. Eastern. This meeting is being held online and we're streaming live for applicants and the public to observe. As a reminder, there is no contact between the panel reviewers and the audience about the disposition of an application before, during, or after the panel review. This meeting will be recorded and made available upon request. At this time, I would like to invite each of our panelists, program manager, and staff members to introduce themselves. Let's start with the member of the panel. Please share your name, occupation, and location from where you're joining us today. Let's start with Alex.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alex Flannery, and I am the program manager for the operational support program in Michigan for the Michigan Arts and Culture Council. And I am zooming in today from Marquette, Michigan, way up north.
Thank you, Alex. Jeff?
Good morning. My name is Jeff Keel, and my experience with Indiana Arts is I did live in Indiana for almost 20 years. I served as the regional director of regional services for the Columbus Area Arts Council. 16 years I served Region 9. But now, today, I am joining you from Marshfield, Wisconsin. My current occupation is I am a contract specialist with a company called Mullins Cheese. We are the largest family-owned cheese producing facility in the state, and I work a lot with our patrons with PR and marketing and payroll.
Thank you, Jeff. And up next, Dave.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Lawrence. I'm the president and CEO of the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County. I'm zooming in today from West Palm Beach, Florida. I was born and raised in Indiana. In fact, I was born in Kokomo, Indiana, right there in Region 4. And for almost 20 years, I was with the Arts Council in Indianapolis. So it's good to be dealing with Hoosiers again. So welcome all, and thanks for all that you're doing.
Thank you all. Let's move on to our program manager and ISC staff. Tisha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tisha Lee, and I am the CEO of the Arts Federation located in Lafayette, Indiana. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the panelists for all of your time.
Thank you, Tisha. Suzette.
Hello, I'm Suzette Hartsfield-Jones, and I'm the Contracting and Financial Operations Coordinator here at the IAC, and today I will be serving as tech support for the panel.
Thank you, Suzette. Connie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Connie Brom, and I'm the Marketing Communications Director for the Arts Commission, and today I am tuning in from Indianapolis. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all. So now we'll begin the panel review, and this is how the process will play out. The panel will discuss each application and the assigned reader will summarize the review before the discussion moves on to the full panel. Once the panel has completed their discussion, they will have the opportunity to update their scores. As a panel facilitator, I encourage the panel to be conversational in your discussion. Feel free to ask questions of one another and chime in when you have thoughts to add. While we want to be mindful of time and focus on the highlights of each application, I am also here to ensure the discussion includes each of the 4 evaluations criteria, which are organizational excellence, artistic quality, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, otherwise known as IDEA, and community engagement. For today's panels, there are no conflict of interest reported. However, if a panelist has a conflict of interest with any of the applicants, they will be placed in the waiting room until we're ready for the next application. Before we begin, are there any questions from the panelists? Hearing none, let's dive in. On the screen is the list of applications that will be reviewed today. They are in alphabetical order. Our first application is Civic's Players of Logansport, and our reader is Dave.
Thank you very much. I noted on the website that the organization is celebrating 60 years, so congrats on that longevity. And this is a comment to all of the organizations. I noted a lot of longevity in the applications that you all have been at this a very long time, and I think that speaks to the quality of the organizations and also the joy of the audiences in attending. So congrats to all of you. I think that's great. I noted that the performances take place in a number of venues, the State Theater, McHale Performing Arts Center, et cetera. As someone who is not really familiar with the area, it would have been helpful to know a little bit more about those venues, the number of seats, et cetera, so that I could get an understanding of the size, the scale, and the scope of your organization. Let's see. I guess I would have liked in the organization section also a little bit more information about the financial status of the organization. You said that you have membership, that membership and tickets leave you in the red every year, which, I get it. But are there other fundraising activities that you have planned? What grants are you going after besides the IAC grant? Are there fundraising plans in place? It would have been really good to hear a little bit more about that. Fundraising and being in the red is something that a lot of us have to deal with, but are there plans in place to sort of help with that? In the ideas section, I thought the information provided about the makeup of the audience was very helpful. That was very detailed, and that gave me a good understanding of the community in which you're working. What I really struggled with here was a clear description of how the idea work has been impactful to the organization and what your plan is moving forward. How are you going to continue to move these initiatives forward? I noted the yearly outreach to peak community services for the dress rehearsal program, and that's a terrific way to provide outreach to populations that have enjoyed being at a performance. I appreciated reading about the promotional efforts at wineries and breweries. I think that was really smart, especially as you're trying to reach younger demographics. But I wondered if there were any efforts to create more strategic partnerships with these organizations. Maybe there's some cross-promotional activities that could help grow the audiences for both. I appreciated the outreach to include those with mental and physical limitations. I noted that there's also a large Hispanic community in Cass County, and the organization has identified that the language barrier is a barrier to participation. I would like to have had a little more information on what your plan is to address that, and how are you going to begin building audiences for that community? And I noted that perhaps looking at programming could be provide a start to some of that work. Relevant programming to that audience is, of course, a great way to build new audiences. And again, back to this notion of strategic partnerships, there's probably some organizations outside of the arts that could help you with this very specific work. So I encourage you to reach out to those kinds of organizations. Underneath artistic quality, I think the educational programming and workshops is terrific. I think that's really great what you're doing. And I think it's great you're tying these workshops into each production. It's a great way to get new people involved. It would be good to know how the directors are chosen for each of the shows, what their qualifications are, who are selecting those directors. As you're continuing to grow your idea work, this becomes really important. Who are those key people and how are the decisions made at bringing them on board? I didn't quite understand the sentence. We work with other local nonprofits and help them in any way, making sure there are many options when it comes to the performing arts. I just wasn't clear what you meant by that. And you noted that you participate in local festivals. How do you do that? Performances, booth space, promotional items. It would have been good to have that information here. And there's some really good partnerships listed, and I want to applaud you for that. And it seems like these partnerships are benefiting your organization. But I want to continue to encourage you to think about strategic partnerships that could help in other areas of your organization where you may feel deficient or not where you need to be, and especially around idea, and maybe even with some of your financial challenges. Are there those kind of partners that could help? And finally, under community engagement, you mentioned memberships, but I didn't see a way to become a member or make a donation on your website. That could be added very quickly and might help with some of your fundraising efforts. You talk about you're contemplating a monthly newsletter. That's a great idea. Maybe as you start, you could do quarterly and build up to that, because monthly is creating a lot of content, right? So maybe you could start smaller with that, but I think that's a great idea. You mentioned comic cards and suggestion sheets. I think you need to really expand beyond that and do some full-scale surveying. You could slip those surveys into your programs, and that's a great way to learn more about your audience. So I'll end there, but the last thing I'm going to say is I really appreciated your social media activity too. There's really good content on your Facebook page and some good interaction there. So keep up the great work and thanks for all that you're doing.
Thank you, Dave. For the rest of the panelists, any new or opposing views?
No.
Dave, I agree with a lot of what you said. And I would just encourage for this applicant, especially in the organizational excellence section, there were 4 kind of big prompts there, and it appears on my screen about a paragraph response for that. And I would just encourage you, I mean, it could almost be twice as long. So I would almost err on the side of giving too much information rather than not enough. So I think what Dave mentioned about the financial section, it asks for your budget size, and then I couldn't find a budget size in your response. So just making sure you're hitting on all the questions that the Arts Council is asking, so I can easily give you all those points.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
The only comment I had, and it was, Dave touched on it briefly, was in community engagement. I saw great partnerships. They talked a lot about, who they were doing things with, but they didn't really mention any feedback they were getting from those partnering organizations or other community groups.
Okay. Are we ready to then score this application? Any scores if you have it, and then give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on to the next one. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Dave. Great. Moving on, we have the Civic Theater of Greater Lafayette Incorporated. Reader is Alex.
Great, thank you. Okay, so for the organizational excellence section, I thought this section was very detailed and well crafted. I thought it used really good supporting examples that, at least for me, clearly demonstrated that the organization is operating smoothly, responsibly, efficiently. So really no other comments for me in this section. I just thought it was a great read. In the idea section, I've also found this section thoughtful and detailed. However, I did think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity here to discuss more in the answer to the B prompt, asking you to describe your audience. I think it seemed like you were kind of describing the audience and answering a different question, but I thought this question was really more asking to describe the organization's audiences in general, like those who consume your programming. So as such, reading through the whole application, I'm still a little unclear about who actually is your audience. And, you've made it really clear that your programs are well attended, but I'm still not really sure who those people are. And I think that's just a really crucial thing for your organization to be able to articulate who is coming to the programs, who isn't, and why. And artistic quality. So this is a tricky section, right, for grant writers. I thought your response here had some great detail. I was just kind of missing an overall direction because I'm still not sure how your organization really defines high artistic quality. So just one of my suggestions for next time is to kind of get ahead of that. And maybe one of the first sentences in your response is, our organization's definition of quality is A, B, C, whatever it is. And then all of the great examples that you did give, I can kind of relate those back to that definition and say, oh, they're totally nailing it. Absolutely. So for example, one line you wrote was, high artistic quality is crucial to our success, and each production has to be exceptional. So I would agree with that statement. But again, just some more articulation needed about exactly what the organization strives for in terms of high quality, because that can be really subjective from panelist to panelist. And that's really what makes this section a little tricky to write. And finally, in community engagement, I really enjoyed this section. One area I could just see for potential improvement for you to consider is just to discuss more about how you're getting feedback from people that aren't already a part of your organization. So you discussed a lot of feedback that you get is from your audience members and donors who are already there. But that can be kind of like an echo chamber, right? So I would just be interested in what efforts are you making to get feedback from those who haven't attended yet, and what insights are you gleaming for that? So you mentioned multiple times that the organization is branching out and becoming more welcoming to the people in your community. And I just am curious how you ensure you're getting a proper amount of feedback from those people who aren't already on the inside. So you mentioned you're doing more and more community engagement events, which I think is great. And I'd be curious in your response to hear what kind of data or even testimonials are you getting at those events that helps inform your decision making. So overall, I thought this was a great application with just a few areas I thought could have been expanded and fleshed out a little bit more to really make the answers even more rock solid. But overall, thanks for the great read on this application.
Thank you, Alex. Any new or posting views on this application?
I've got a couple comments. I agree with Alex's review. There was such a wonderful spirit to this application. It was very well written and provided a lot of detail. And it's clear that this is an organization that cares about the community in which it resides. I think that, where was the, in IDEA, I love the use of the word safe right away in your response. It's showing that you are thinking carefully about why inclusive programming is important. I think that was great. I loved in community engagement, I loved the Adopt Your Sylvia collaboration. That was really smart and clever. This is out of the box thinking, and I just think it's terrific. I love the artist residency program too. I said, overall, this is an organization that's doing great work, is mindful of the challenges ahead, and is embracing the notion that theater really is for all. So congrats on a great application.
I have a couple of comments. Community engagement, they talk about how they use QR codes in their programs to gather input from patrons. I was curious to see how many people are responding and what kind of data are they getting. Also in community engagement, they talk about addressing those who live with disabilities and engaging them, and making it convenient at their venues for them to come, but they didn't really mention what kind of critical feedback they get from that particular audience. And being a guy who's worked in professional theater for 20 years, I love the out of the box program that's described in the very beginning. So yes, a very strong, as I wrote, a solid organization within their community.
Thank you, everyone. I will allow this time then for you all to add any additional comments or update any scoring, and then give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Dave. Up next is Curtain Call Incorporated, and our reader is Jeff.
Good morning. My challenge today might be reading my own handwriting. I briefly looked at the website for this organization, and one thing I really enjoyed was the different levels of support that someone could join and be a patron. You can make a donation at very many different levels, something that a household of 3 or 4 can afford, and also a corporate donor. I love in the mission statement, excuse me, a key element: promote self-expression. The governing board shows some diversity amongst their background and their experience. This group to me seems to be solid and stable, and I say that because in 2021 they were able to split away from the Kokomo Civic Theater, reflecting on how strong they are, and how this organization and the board of directors are wearing many hats to create a sound organization. So I say kudos really to the theater supporters in the city of Kokomo who are contributing to these production companies in their community. I like the variety of workshops that are also being planned for the future: audition preparation, stage combat, musical dance, stage makeup, just a few that they mentioned. I think this organization rode the waves of the pandemic pretty well. They came out of it creating their own 501c3 and garnering a building they can call home. I'm impressed by how the group defines the experience that the children have as a close-knit family and the responses they got from the children who are saying it's positive, helping with self-confidence and creating new friends. Having this new building and the black box theater can create more opportunities for this group to do other events and smaller productions. They're not the first group where I've read that they struggle to keep ticket prices affordable. This applicant finds itself, in a challenging position when you've got limited ticket sales, and well, that means limited income. So if the goal is to purchase this current leased building they have, the group should look at capital grants. It might take them out of their comfort zone as far as fundraising, but it's going to be essential to have them focus on outside funds to help keep those ticket prices affordable. They may have to look at other revenue that's aimed at helping purchase a building. In the area of IDEA, I like that the board has decided to create a long-term goal to expand programming to make sure participants are more culturally diverse. The executive director already communicates with at-risk youth organizations. That's a good group to partner with. They're looking at other programs that already exist. I think that Curtain Call knows how to do what they do, and they can provide the power to work with another group that enhances a program within the community. This group, they admit that collaborating with others is an investment. Yeah, it's an investment in time, but like any other investment, there'll be a payoff, whether it's a great gain for a Curtain Call or a gain for the partnering organization or for the participants themselves. In artistic quality, the executive director seems very qualified, 20 years of education on that resume, 17 years of directing theater. I like how the production teams meet during and after production to check in, meet goals, talk about deadlines, budget, and address issues. They don't always make things a post-production review. The last thing you want is someone to say to you, well, I'm never going to help you do that again because you didn't find out about something that was happening midway through a production. This group is showing its quality and organization by joining and being accepted by the Chamber of Commerce, theater associations that were mentioned throughout their application. In the area of community engagement, using that very friendly website to ask patrons for feedback should garner good data. That was impressive. I think it's set up very well, and it offers the opportunity for community members to share their insight. This group recognized the need for board training and has plans to work with a nonprofit consultant to work with them on board development and strategic planning. Kudos. I like that. And many groups focus a majority of their board time, just on fundraising. We need funds. We need money. Go out and find us money. Well, I feel confident this group has a stable foundation. They're going to work with their community. They're going to get corporate donors, and they'll accomplish those strategic goals. It was good to see this group participating in the nonprofit sustainability forums. And my final thought is, well, the best way to get to the city and try to get city funds is put the mayor in one of your productions. So I think they're creating great opportunities for themselves right there in the city of Kokomo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. Any new or opposing views?
Just a couple of quick comments for this application. I found just in general, in a few different sections, the responses made some claims. For instance, in the idea section, there was a sentence that started, "We believe reaching all the school systems can help us increase," and then it kind of went on and on. But I'm just curious, do you have evidence, that this has worked, or is it something new you're trying? So just whenever a claim is made that says, we do this or do we do that, I just like to hear a little more about exactly how you're doing that, and an honest assessment of if it's working or not. And just kind of along those similar lines in your
Hey
community.
guys, sorry to interrupt. I think our live stream may have stopped for a second. I just want to double check on that before we continue.
Sure.
So sorry, if we can just
You're
pause
okay.
for just a second.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, we're good to go. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So sorry about
okay.
that.
You're okay. Yep. Just in case I got cut off, just to summarize my previous comment, it was just about, if you're going to make any claims in the application, just back it up with a lot of great examples. In my final comment in the community engagement section, for example, in your response to the A prompt, I understand how you gather the input, but then the part about how that input is actually used and evaluated was just kind of skipped over. So, and I thought this was an area that you probably have like 10 great examples on the top of your head about how you've implemented feedback. So that just would have been an opportunity here to expand your answer here.
A couple comments, if I may. I agree with my esteemed colleagues. Great review of this application. I thought this was a really well-written application. Again, an organization with a lot of longevity. Clearly, this is a well-respected and beloved organization, so that's great to see. It was wonderful to read about the building. That's a huge step, very impressive. It seems like there's been some almost explosive growth for the organization, which is great, but there's always sort of a downside to that. And I just want to make sure that the organization is planning for this growth. You mentioned that you're talking about adding professional staff so that you don't burn out your board members. And I think that's a really smart step that you need to take to make sure that, everybody is firing on all pistons. This is a note that I noted in a lot of the applications, and that is around your board of directors. It would be helpful to list their professional affiliations as well, especially when you have a listing on your website or whatever, just so that we get, okay, so they've got some lawyers on the board, they've got some marketing executives, that sort of thing. You can list philanthropists or community leader for some if they're retired and still serving, but that just gives us as panelists who might not know your organization some really good information about the leadership, the type of leadership of your organization. There was one other thing I wanted to make sure that I said under sorry. I really appreciated the community partnerships that you listed. I thought those were incredibly strong. And as Jeff noticed, the participation in the excellence in nonprofit leadership and the sustainability forums and all that stuff is terrific. So really, really great work here, and excited to see where you all go. So thank you.
You all for great feedback and comments. We're going to go now to update your applications with any additional comments or updating the score. And again, thumbs up when you're ready to move on to the next one. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Alex. On deck is the Delphi Opera House, and Alex is our reader for this one.
Okay, thank you. So organizational excellence section. I just thought there were many things in here that made this section really strong. So I just wanted to really commend the grant writing here. I thought including the economic impact data in section B was just a really nice touch and totally reinforced the point you were trying to make. So overall, I just found the writing really clear, concise, and compelling. In the idea section, I think it sounds like the organization has put some really commendable effort into building a board that reflects the diversity of its community. All in all, I thought a lot of the organization's thoughts and goals around IDEA were very reasonable and proven to be effective so far. So I just thought this was an excellent section overall. In artistic quality, I really enjoyed reading about your success in getting some big name acts to come perform at your venue. That was really fun to read. And I just thought this was another great example of some really clear, concise, and compelling grant writing. So kudos to you here. And finally, in community engagement, I didn't necessarily take off any points here, but one suggestion I have is just to add some examples of the feedback that you're getting in your survey and Zoom idea sessions. I just think that would help us get an idea of what you're hearing during these sessions, whether it's positive or constructive criticism. And then you can kind of relate that back to how that input is considered and potentially implemented. For the second half of this section, I enjoyed your answer. I just wasn't really quite sure it answered the question asked. Your answer discussed more about how the organization benefits from engaging with your community and your audiences, and how you like to make sure everybody's voice is heard. And that's totally great and commendable. The question, at least as I interpret it, was asking you specifically to describe mutual benefits that arrive from you working with your community partners. But you do kind of touch on that elsewhere in the application. So really, that was the only one place in the application where I just couldn't really line up your answer to the prompt. Every other one was a really clear answer to each prompt that was asked. So we'll just use that as my one piece of constructive feedback here. But overall, I thought this was a really well-crafted application.
Thank you, Alex. Additional comments?
I'm going to go along with what Sean just said. First section, you know, it was like a baseball team. Okay, home run. You know, next section, home run, and then we get to community engagement. And I just felt like there's a lack of detail here. I don't know if the question was answered correctly, but I have the same feeling he has, that you know, it's an outstanding organization recognized as like a pillar for the arts, not just the performing arts in the community that they're in. You know, great partnerships, but when it came to community engagement, I don't think the narrative was telling us a good story there.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Dave?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments. I agree that the first section was, to use the sports analogy, a home run. I think the economic impact numbers that were provided were great. That was really impressive to have in there. I had a bit more trouble with the diversity, equity, inclusion section. There was a statement made. Let me see if I can find this. It's very hard. It's like chewing gum and riding a bike at the same time. So I got to try to find my specific note here. The note I had here is, I would challenge you to think a little differently about the primary thing that you want to change. You said that you wanted to change the public perception of the organization. Maybe it could be articulated that increasing the diversity of your audience or growing your audience would be a stronger way to state that. Because when you're talking about public perception, it seems a little insular. And really what you want to do is make that more of an external, like, how can we really embrace the community and the organizations that we're trying to change? So I think you need to be intentional and deliberate with your programming choices. That will really help you with some of this work that you need to do. So that was my note there. I thought it was, under artistic quality, a good mix of local, regional, and national acts. So you've really got a great variety there. It would have been helpful to know a little bit about the strategy behind the season programming. Why are you selecting the acts you are? Who are you trying to reach through that programming, so that we could sort of see a through line with that? That would give us a little better of an understanding of really what your strategy is behind that. And it would be great to know a little bit about how you're assessing your artistic quality. You know, surveying of audiences, that would be really important to do. I think, and under the final section, community engagement, I think the use of Zoom to gather input from the community is a good one. You know, if you can get folks to sort of adopt that technology, and, you know, some people are afraid of it, but I hadn't seen that articulated before about using Zoom to get some feedback. So that's great. And I would have liked more information on the legacy event. Is it a fundraiser? Who's invited? What's on the program? Those sort of things. So I think that the organization would greatly benefit. Again, I mentioned earlier some strategic partnerships that could help you grow your audiences, as well as providing more visibility to some of your offerings.
Great, thank you, everyone. So we're going to move on now to the review and scoring of the application. So when you are done adding your comments or getting your score, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Jeff and Alex. Thank you, Dave. Moving on, we're going to go with Fendig Theater for Children. Dave.
Thank you. I just need to switch my. All right, here we go. Okay, Fendig Theater. Again, this is an organization with a lot of longevity. It's wonderful to see. I really like the virtual programming. This was a wonderful pivot during the pandemic, but it's great to see that you've returned to in-person experience as well. It's great that you now have a facility. That's wonderful. I thought it was really great that the students handle all the aspects of the shows. I think that's a wonderful teaching opportunity, gives them a lot of agency and ability to really learn all aspects of a theatrical production. So that's great. I also think it's great you're surveying your student participants. And I appreciate that you've listed your board members on your website. But again, as I said earlier, it'd be great to have those affiliations listed so that I know the depth of leadership and expertise on your governing body. The financial question was a bit difficult to follow. So what are you going to do with the land that you purchased? I'd like more information on the building, how big, what happens there, those sort of questions. So a little more detail there would have been helpful. I think it is fantastic that you have your own endowment. That is great to see. And I appreciated that you articulated strategies for financial growth. And I just have to say that both your website and your social media channels are fantastic. So great work there. I really appreciate that. Under idea, I appreciate the care and thought given to idea work in the organization. You mentioned if there is a fee involved. So that immediately made me think what programs do or might require a fee, how much is that? That would have been helpful to know. And I would have liked information on how you're reaching out to the students to participate in your programs. And are there efforts to reach out to underserved communities? And if so, how does that happen? What does that information and communication channel look like? I would have liked a bit more information on the statement, being intentional with staff, volunteers, and participants in dealing with complexity of diversity. I appreciate you said that, but I'd like to know a little bit more about that. What does that mean? How are you helping everyone feel valued through your work? And what does that look like? I think it's great that you're including staff that might look like or reflect some of the students in the program. That's really important. The ADA question gave me pause. How are you currently addressing those issues? What are you hiring the architect for? What building improvements don't exist right now that would impact your accessibility efforts? So I think a little more detail there would have given me a little more confidence in your accessibility area. Under artistic quality, the photography on the homepage is wonderful. Your social media presence is phenomenal. It's a great variety of programming, instructional and educational videos. Very, very impressive. I really, really loved it. I spent quite a bit of time looking at some of those videos. There was a great description of the qualifications of those providing the education, the instruction and direction. It is clear that artistic quality is important consideration in all aspects of this organization. So I thought this was a really strong area for you. And finally, in community engagement, I was missing the how in gathering input. And then how is that input used? You mentioned surveys, who's surveyed, how often, for what purpose, what do you do with that information, once you get it? That would be really important for us to have. I'd love to know more about your advisory boards and how they operate. I think it's great that you have them, but I'd like to know a little bit more about how they are interacting with your organization, your governing body, all those sort of things. You mentioned a few partnerships and referred me back to the first question. Those partnerships benefited the other organizations while providing you with some great visibility, but I'd be interested in knowing what partnerships, strategic or otherwise, have been created to help you do your work better. I think we get that lost in the mix a lot of times. We do these partnerships, and it's so that we can help these other organizations and maybe it'll get our stuff out there. But I want to see you think about how that's going to benefit your organization. And I was really missing that list of partners and how you were benefiting from that work. But this is an organization that's doing terrific work in the community. I was astounded by your online presence and the care that goes into your programs. So congrats to your talented board and staff.
Thank you, Dave. Any additional comments?
I'll chime in. Here's my sports analogy again. Another group that did really well in those first 3 sections. And then when it came to community engagement, they got up to the plate and just swung and missed the ball. Dave pointed it out well, lacking details on how surveys are distributed, how the input's received. I don't disagree that meaningful relationships and a sense of belonging are something that we want, but that section to me was missing examples of how they were going to gather that information and engage the community. Again, I agree with Dave, the social media, the YouTube videos that were made on teaching people about theater, that's outstanding. That's great to see. I wish there were some professional companies who could develop things like that. My only other comment was, I think early on in the application, there was some, I think it was some misspellings. Yeah, we operates, I think was a word that was used. And then personally, I didn't care for narrative that was just listed 1 this, 2 that, 3 that, but that's just the way I am. I'd prefer to read than see a list.
Yeah,
Alex?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to concur with my colleagues, not to reiterate this ad nauseum, but for the last section, I literally wrote, I feel like the application ran out of steam. So maybe you were working up against the deadline and just need to get it done, but just an area for improvement next time. I wanted to also concur with what Dave said about the idea section, just that there are a lot of claims made and just some really specific examples would help strengthen. So for example, the narrative talked about how there's now gender neutral bathrooms. Great. But do you have any testimonials from people who are really appreciative of that? Because you said that people are appreciative of that, but it would have been stronger to say, hey, gender neutral bathroom facilities have been very much appreciated, such as by one audience member who said this to us and thanked us for having them. So just adding some examples to back up the claims. And finally, just one really quick comment for this organization. This wasn't necessarily part of our scoring, but I found the mission statement for the organization. It was very, very long. It was at least as it appears on my screen, like 9 lines long. And I just really believe, this is just a personal thing, mission statements should be really kind of clear and concise. You can say it in one breath, if you will. Your mission statement here read to me more as a really good vision statement. And so, take it or leave it. That's just a thought for you to consider, but thank you.
I concur completely with that. I meant to mention that it did read more like a vision listing than a mission statement. So good catch there, Alex.
Great. With no additional comments, let's move over now to updating your comments in the application and updating any scores. Thumbs up when you're done. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex. Okay, moving on is the Indiana Fiddlers Gathering. Reader is Jeff.
I'm getting there. Give me a minute. This group presents a great offering of musical genres: blues, bluegrass, Celtic, Creole, old time, Zydeco. I mean, I didn't mention them all, but as you can see, I'm excited about this application. I like the way the committee structure is put together. I like the educational programs, festival programming, community outreach. There's a good mix of community membership, board membership, and artists all in that committee structure. It's great to see this group partner with the Park and Recs Department historical societies, the town of Battleground. The organization shows sound financial planning, realizing that the festival cannot be the only fundraising activity that they do. So now they got to diversify their revenue stream with camps, classes, concerts, keep the organization, within its own comfort zone, but provide some funding opportunities in areas that they're familiar with. The strength and experience of the new executive director, I think, are bringing in the annual fundraiser campaign is a great idea. I like seeing that over 25% of this budget goes towards traditional artists. It's great to see a scholarship program offered to young people, the Wilbur Aid Scholarship. I like seeing partnerships created with other outstanding organizations like the Delphi Opera House. In the area of IDEA, I agree with the narrative that due to its mission, the organization is dedicated to promoting and focusing on the diversity of the performers. The organization is headed down the right path, I think. The creation of Friends of the Fiddlers. Good to know that community members are a part of this group, a way to reach a wider coverage area. I think the group has created some good opportunities within their board by widening the boundaries and bringing in more women and younger people. Tells me this group that's been around for a long time is, changing of the guard on the board of directors. And this leads this group to wanting to also reach out to the Latino community. I like how this applicant describes searching for new demographics. It's a two-way relationship. It's not just something to fulfill something that requires them to do because they're seeking public funding. In the area of artistic quality, it's good to see that there is a performance committee. The selection committee has members. They are professionals in the music industry and they represent areas throughout their region. The applicant is working towards year-round educational workshops. The education committee and the executive director are given the task of putting this and other tasks in place. And I feel confident with the way they described it, that it's going to happen. And in the area of community engagement, I think they've made great use of public input by having monthly meetings open to anyone who wants to give them input. Social media and paper surveys to gather the feedback. I wasn't quite sure about a term that was used called survey style feedback. That's new to me, or I'm not sure what that was. It is wise to talk with community partners and tourism about their programming. I think that over the years, this group has developed a statewide reputation and has built a large number of dedicated attendees. They have a successful history of programming, and this group isn't shy about making adjustments to a system that has worked well for a long time. The group has accepted the idea of change. Sometimes you can't bring the word change to a board of directors. And I applaud the approach that they're taking to shape this organization and this event into a place that will make a difference for all of those involved, whether it's presenters or participants or patrons.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. Additional comments?
Just one really quick comment for this application. And by the way, I thought this was an excellent application overall. So just because I'm sharing a possible avenue of improvement, I don't want you to take that as that I was really harsh on the rest of the application. But just in the organizational excellence, in your response to B, where it's asking, why is it important what you do? Really, the sentence that gleamed to me is that you indicated your organization is one of the only in the region, I would guess, dedicated to preserving traditional music. I would agree that's important to preserve traditional music, but why? Give us some data or testimonials or research or examples about why that's important. You don't want us to kind of infer that answer for you. Pretend you're going to a donor or a foundation and they're asking, well, why should I support you over this other application? And then you can really nail it. Well, this is why it's important what we do. I think you probably have that answer. I just would love to see it written out here when it's asking you why is it important, other than, well, we're the only ones that do it.
To piggyback on that, Alex, I'm glad you brought that up. I noted that was a particularly strong response, and I really appreciated that. When I lead grant workshops, I tell people, give that differentiating information, make, funding organizations understand why it should be you that gets these dollars. And I think that you're right, to strengthen it with some actual facts and figures behind that would have made it even stronger. I also really like that they mentioned that they have a relationship with the Arts Federation and they're working in partnership with the Federation. Those of us that work for local arts service agencies, we crave partnerships with the organizations that we serve, and we hope that they will use us for our programs and services that can help strengthen them. That's why we exist. So I thought it was really smart that they mentioned that work with the Arts Federation. Under IDEA, I agree with Jeff. I really appreciated reading about the Friends of Fiddlers Advisory Group. That's great. That's just really, really smart. And I am encouraged to read about the outreach to Latinx, Hispanic, and veteran communities. I think that work is really important too. One thing that I think I wish groups would spend a little more time about under IDEA, and I think it's important for us to remember, as we're trying to diversify our audiences and we're trying to diversify our board of directors and all of that, it's important to think about who's making those decisions. Who are those gatekeepers that are helping us decide what the programming is, who we're reaching out to, and all of that. And to make sure that those representatives, and I'm not saying that they aren't in this instance, but that these people are representative of the community as well. So those kind of descriptions about how these artistic decisions and outreach decisions are made, I think would be really helpful for us as panelists, and also helpful for organizations to just think about in a more strategic manner, to make sure that the people that are making the decisions are representative of the communities that we're trying to reach. So I just think that's an important point to make. And the last thing I'll say is I would have liked a little bit more robust description of the partners that help the organization do what it does. And are there some new strategic partners that can be brought to the table? But overall, very well-written organization, doing phenomenal work. And it's great to see the traditional arts alive and well.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We're moving on now to the stage of adding additional comments to your application and updating any scores if needed. Thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one, please. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Dave. And thank you, Alex. Let's move on now to the Kokomo area, starting with Kokomo Civic Theater Incorporated. Back to you, Jeff.
Oh, I get a double header.
You get a double one.
I have to apologize earlier. I think I referred to Alex at one point as Sean. I apologize.
Oh, you're okay. I got it. I got what you meant. Thanks, though, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff.
Kokomo Civic Theater. It's great to see that part of this group's mission is to collaborate with other organizations. That's a solid history of programming that they bring into their community, and off to a good start. I like reading about them. What most organizations and presenting organizations had to drop a lot of programming during the pandemic, this organization adds another show. Isn't that a great thing to see? I think it's a good example of how the arts can help us heal. A wide variety of programs, Willy Wonka, Freud's Last Session, socially relevant shows like Dogfight. This group has formed many partnerships, the Symphony, the Downtown Association, the First Fridays, festivals. I like how part of their education programming, one of the goals and things is set construction. This group sees the importance of putting on a quality production, and that means providing stipends to those artistic staff that they need. I like the staggered terms of the board. I think there's a good diversity in age among the board members. There's examples of racial diversity. The board seems to be maturing with a transition from, I think they used the word theater doers, to a governance board. This requires their board members to make annual commitments to the budget. That's not easy to get sometimes. And that shows a step that this organization is creating a group that's committed to doing business. I like the committees that they describe: fundraising, marketing, nominating, play reading. The partnerships listed show a variety of groups: the City of Kokomo, the County Commissioners, community foundations, other groups and the Community Theater Association they are part of. This group has been able to make capital improvements and build on a current building because the City of Kokomo and a longtime KCT actor gave them these kind of funds. These are the hardest dollars to try to get. So, it's great they have it. Usually Joe Q Public doesn't want to contribute to, let's put a new roof on the building fund. So they're in a good place there. In the area of idea, the target audience has been clearly defined: youth, families, senior citizens, those who live with disabilities, those where ticket prices and other socioeconomic obstacles keep them from making it to the theater. So making it a goal to produce one children's show a year might even find them a wider audience and open up some new opportunities. I am thrilled to see that the retirement community is invited to the dress rehearsals. And I'd like to go to Kokomo sometime and be part of one of those parking lot concerts. The connections made with opportunities for the positive growth group and having the high school transition class participate in things like house management and office chores, that's all commendable. It's really good to see the numbers in the ethnic diversity, especially in the production of Matilda. I congratulate this group for taking on the issue of racial injustice, bringing it to the forefront. And I think it's going to be a bonus for this community to see a play written by a local playwright. Having the executive director attend the anti-racist workshop, help take advantage of programs that are being offered by the American Association of Community Theaters, all a plus. This shows long-term programming for the organization, helps build them goals, helps them develop. I think it'll increase the capacity of the organization to achieve those goals by continuing those kind of activities. I'm intrigued by the Penguin Project, a long-range goal, not an easy undertaking. More rehearsals, more volunteers, more staff time, but like most things, you got to be ready for anything. And I think this group is. There's no pamphlet written for them that tells them how they're going to conquer or bring that whole program together. But I think they're up to the task. It's wise to gather demographic information. It's going to help develop marketing strategies. It's going to help them understand their audience and really be helpful when they're looking at funds. They'll have specific details about what areas need to be affected. In artistic education, another great goal to see. Here we go. Challenge our actors and encourage their artistic growth. Picking plays with more challenging roles, social issues, have educational components built into it, shows me that you're going to get there. Having talkbacks brings all your patrons to a certain place. They're all connected to the production. I like it. Not a lot of patrons will sit there with a pencil and scratch down on a piece of paper at the end of a production what they felt. But if you can keep them in their seat and dim the house lights and have a little interaction, you're going to learn a lot about things. And of course, you'll still have your standard patron who wants to drive home, get into his pajamas, get on your website and log on and take the survey. And we all know there's a lot of people who won't even take the time to do that. It's great to see scholarships going to students interested in studying theater. The executive director has quite the resume. President of the Indiana Community Theater Association, working at New Harmony Project, impressive. What's more is there to cheer about? I think the success of this group that they've achieved in these theatrical competitions, being nationally recognized on a regular basis, to me is a big deal. To me, these are like the baseball pennants they should hang up in the lobby and show the community how recognized they are. In community engagement, here we go, rungs on the ladder. They're somewhere in between. Arts seek to involve the community and arts develop intentional collaborations with community. I love it. I got the visual. I really like how the public readings are held to patrons and they all give a chance to let the production team know what their feedback is about plays that are on their short list. I like that public opinion is sought out from the Community Foundation, the Rotary Club, the Chamber. That's where you're going to find your key funders. And excellence in nonprofit. I'm not surprised to see this organization as part of a discussion about best practices for nonprofits. The end.
Thank you for that thorough assessment, Jeff. Additional comments?
Sure, thank you. I thought there was plenty of merit in this application. Just one comment, food for thought, and I'm actually going to repeat myself from what I said in the last application. In your response to organizational excellence, in the response to B, where it's asking you why is it important, you said your shows tackle some social issues and your audience is really seems engaged in that, but I just love to hear more. Why is it important? Maybe even back to those who participate in making your programming. What does someone get from being an actor, or what benefits are there on the youth that participate? I could talk to you, I'm a musician. I could talk to you for an hour about why it's important to put a musical instrument in a young person's hands and how that helps grow skills that they'll use throughout their adolescence and into their career. So I would just maybe consider adding some of that in your response next time, just to make this section even stronger. Why is it important, other than you're the only one who presents this? Why is it important for those who are actually involved?
I do have a couple of comments. The first, and this is not a scoring issue, but in the mission, I was a little struck at the use of the word amateur. There's kind of a negative connotation to that. So maybe you could rethink something a little bit more aspirational there. I don't know. It just because from what I've seen, what you're doing is not amateur. You're winning a lot of awards and making a lot of great connections in the community. So that just was something that I think that you could take a look at. I do really appreciate that you're talking about transitioning from a more member-driven board of theater doers into a more community board. I think that's really, really smart. And it seems like a good evolution for this organization at this point. I think that taking that next step will get you some new donors and community relationships and all of that. So I think that's very, very smart. I really liked your social media presence. I enjoyed seeing the photos on your Facebook page. I think you could use some of those on your website too. Under idea, I love, as Jeff said, the parking lot concert idea. That's brilliant. And the Primrose Happy Hours, those are really great. Here's something that, again, language that kind of struck me in the idea section. You say that some of the productions require a diverse cast. Has there been thoughts to diversifying your other productions as well, so that we're not just pigeonholing actors into certain shows that are requiring that? And I think now is the time for the organization to think more broadly about what inclusion could mean, and usage of the word required when you're talking about inclusion is off-putting, like that you don't really want to do it, but you're required to do so. So I think even as you're talking about these things in applications, language is important. So just be mindful of that. Under artistic quality, I love that you included the awards that you've won on your website. That is really impressive. I know in this day and age, getting critical reviews of work is very hard to come by. And I wish that the media was better about doing that. So it's really hard if we don't have artistic samples to glean that information. And boy, winning all of those awards is a great way for us to know this. So this gave me really good indication of the quality of this organization. And as Jeff mentioned, the AACT competitions and all that you're involved in, that's phenomenal. And finally, I love the partnership with the Downtown Association and the mystery event. That virus event was great. I loved seeing the costume. What a great sort of disruptor type of event. That's some out of the box thinking that are going to get people thinking about your organization maybe in a new way. So great work. It was a pleasure to read this application.
Fantastic. Thank you all. We're going to move now to the portion of updating your comments in the application or updating any scores. Thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one, please. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Dave. And thank you, Jeff. Moving on, we're going to head over now to Kokomo Community Counselors Incorporated. Our reader is Alex.
All right, thank you. Okay, so starting with organizational excellence, I would just start off by encouraging the applicant to keep in mind that most people reviewing these applications, such as myself, have really never heard of your organization before. So your ability to kind of turn me from an outsider to an insider is really critical in this application. So from reading your response to portion A, for instance, I understand that your organization is a presenter, but I don't really know what you present. And I can piece that together by looking at the website and doing my own research. But I don't know if it's classical music. Is it music only? Is there theater, dance? And a little more about your facility too, I think would be helpful just in getting me to wrap my head around who you are and what you do. So I just encourage you to use this section to flesh it out more. I think grant applications are your chance to brag about all the cool stuff you do. So convey that for us. This kind of continues on in your response to B in this section, in which one sentence was provided and didn't really touch on what the prompt was asking for me. Same thing about the budget. So I can tell, you have answers for all these things, and it's clear the organization is impactful in your community, but just take some time to really flesh out your answers and make sure you're hitting on the prompts asked, so that I can give you credit for that. In the idea section, I struggled a little bit here. There were 5 prompts to answer, and I just really couldn't quite connect your answers back to all of those prompts. So I would just suggest going back and making sure you're just really directly answering that question. But from the information you did provide, it let me know that the organization is aware of IDEA as a concept, and that you're constantly working towards implementing some of these tenets in your work. For the second part, the B response asking about your audience, I appreciated that you mentioned that you do survey your audience and collect demographics. And then you gave us a couple of short examples of those demographics, but since you're collecting it, which not every organization does collect it, since you do have that data, give it all to us here, or at least much more, to help strengthen it. In artistic quality, this is just another section where I can tell the building blocks are there, and I just wanted you to expand with more sentences, more paragraphs. The prompt for artistic quality gives you some ideas of what you can write about, the expertise of those involved, your artistic selection, your improvement process. But then I found, the short 2 paragraphs you gave didn't really cover those for me. And it just kind of felt like you were running out of time or steam in this section. So I do know for artistic quality, there aren't as many points available as other sections. So maybe you were trying to concentrate on those bigger point sections. But again, just making sure you're giving each section some proper time and attention to come up with those thorough and compelling responses. So after reading this section, I'm really not able to answer how your organization defines high quality and how it really strives for that. In community engagement, kind of the same thing for this section. There were 3 sentences provided, but really all of these prompts could have had like multiple paragraphs written for each. And I'm not sure if there's a text limit that you're working with, but I would just encourage you to give tons of examples here. Do you collect feedback? How? Is it paper, electronic? What are some examples of questions you ask? What are some examples of feedback that you've received? So on and so on. So again, I feel like perhaps you were running out of time in this section, and just I think there's an opportunity here to just provide some more thorough and compelling answers. So just overall for this application, I thought it had some great building blocks. I see what you're doing in your community, and it's clearly appreciated, but just a little more attention back to your grant writing to really flesh out these answers, and keep in mind, as a panelist who's never heard of your organization before, all I really have to go on is your application side by side with a rubric. So I'm kind of just going down my list, and I want to give you credit for hitting on each of those prompts that the Arts Council wants you to. I think there's just a little avenue for improvement to expand your answers to make sure you're really hitting on all of those prompts. Thank you.
Fantastic. Additional comments? Hearing none. Oh, Dave?
I'll jump in here. I concur with Alex. I had some difficulty with this application. I really feel there was a distinct lack of information provided, and so it really made it difficult to think about what I was going to score in certain areas. And I agree that the building blocks are there, but there were not enough sort of points connecting together to help me understand and get a good understanding of what's going on and what you're actually trying to do. A few specifics, especially an IDEA. I was really disappointed here. I would have liked to have seen a much deeper discussion about IDEA and the steps your organization is taking to broaden its reach. There was no discussion or description about audiences of color, audiences with disabilities, outreach to the LGBTQIA+ community. That was a disappointment. You know, we needed to hear, are you aware of these audiences in your community, how you're reaching them? Are there attempts to do so? In the artistic section, I did go to the website and I noted a distinct lack of diversity in the artists that are selected. So here's an excellent opportunity for the organization to expand its offerings and educate its audiences and perhaps build new audiences as you work. One statement here that sort of stuck out to me, you said you indicated that the management representatives know your organization and which artists that please your audience and which to avoid. My question as I read that is, but do they know your community and the demographics there and the underserved audiences that exist? So this is where your board, your artistic expertise really needs to come to the forefront here and say, but here's the people that we're trying to reach, and these kind of programs can help us do that. So I was disappointed there. And I really wanted to read about community partnerships and collaborations, because it sounds like this is an organization that could really benefit from them. And if you do have them, then it certainly would have been great to see. As we talked about earlier, I encourage this organization to use the space provided in a grant application to provide as much information as possible about activities, programs, goals, and objectives. You know, as Alex said, I'm an out-of-state panelist as well. And so it's really important for me. The only way I'm going to know your organization is from the information presented. So I encourage you to really use that space and you know, maybe have others read it before you submit it and say, what questions do you have on this? Is this clear? Whatever, that can really help sort of iron some of that out before you get in. But you've been around a long time, so clearly you've got an audience that's following what you do. And I encourage you to think about some of those things that will help strengthen your application for next time.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
My notes pretty much concur with Dave and Alex.
Okay, thank you. Take this time now to update any comments or scoring. Thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one. Thank you. Great. Moving on, we're going to head over now to Kokomo Park Band. Dave Lawrence, it's a reader. And you are muted, Dave.
Sorry, had to make it a little bigger so I could read it. Okay, Kokomo Park Band. Underneath organizational excellence, 121 years, are you kidding me? That is so impressive, wonderful to see. It's a great season with a true mix of genres. I appreciated reading about all the work that the outreach ensembles do. That's a great way to give your musicians more performing opportunities and reach diverse audiences. That's great. I love that the organization was inducted into the Howard County Hall of Legends. That's really impressive. Great to see. I love that you included information that your draw is from outside the county as well. Great audience numbers for each concert. That's impressive. I like that you referenced the NEA in your description and provided some information from their website on some advocacy data. I think that's really important. There's a wonderful sense of community from this application. I love that the folks gather 90 minutes prior to the concert. Local churches are providing refreshments, and it's clear that this is a community gathering event when one of these concerts happen, and that's just really great to see. The website has a lot of great information on it. I really got a truer sense of the organization. And I appreciated that there's a photo of the band right when you get on the page. So you see the size of the band, all of them sitting there. I think that was really, really great. Underneath idea, I would like to know more about the curbside concerts. Those sounded really interesting. So how many are you doing? Who are you targeting? All that kind of information, because it sounds really, really great. As I mentioned, the outreach ensembles, utilizing those as a way to sort of get into different communities and underserved communities is really great. You mentioned that the efforts at diverse programming was well received, but that it never led to sustained interest. It would be interesting to see what would happen if this diverse programming became part of the regular programming and what impact that would have. So I would urge you to think more about not one-off concerts, but how can we make this a true sort of staple of our regular season programming? And then if those audiences continue to see programming that is relevant to them each season, I think you'd see a growth in those audiences. Wow, wow, wow. On your Juneteenth concert, the concert's highlighting Black composers, their tribute to Rosa Parks. All of this is terrific and just great, great to see. I was thrilled to read that the Kokomo Parks Band is changing its mission statement to reflect this work. I would love also to see gender and gender expression as well as sexual orientation added to that list. I think that would be important. But this is a wonderful and affirming step for this organization, and you're definitely headed in the right direction. You have an idea action plan. I wrote in all caps, wonderful. I just think this is really responsible, forward-thinking, community-minded work, and you are to be commended for that. And this statement really stuck out to me. Bringing diversity into the group has made the organization smarter and more innovative. Yes, good for you. Congratulations. I encourage you to move beyond openly considering ways to reach other people and just do it. You have the plan, you have the building blocks in place. Don't need to consider anymore. Dive in there and let's get this done. I think you've got the building blocks in place to do that. I just can't say enough about the response in this section. I thought it was really, really terrific. Underneath artistic quality, nice range of styles, genres, and themes to your concert. I love to read that musicians are paid. And I love that the musicians are regularly providing feedback about their experiences. It's great when you're dealing with a cadre of artists to be checking in with them to make sure that not only are you making sure that your audiences are happy, but that your roster of artists is happy too. So that's really great to see. I'd like a little more information about the audition process, if regular re-auditions are required, how you're reaching out to potential musicians. A little bit more information would have been good there. Great description of your arts education programs. Thank you for that. And finally, under community engagement, you even provided information about the scripted comments before each concert. You are really thinking about enrichment of your audiences, and I really appreciate that. Great description about how feedback is solicited, collected, and how it's used in future planning. I like the discussion about audience ownership in the organization of the concerts. You know you've succeeded with audience loyalty when ... So this is just terrific work. I appreciated reading about the regular meetings with the mayor and county officials, as well as African-American leaders. I thought it was a wonderful description of your partnerships and what they do for you, as well as the services you're providing to them. And finally, I just have to say this application was an absolute joy to read. This is an organization that takes pride in the work that it does and the connection that it makes throughout the community. And the fact that the organization just completed its 121st season is testament to excellence, both administratively and artistically. Bravo, congratulations on a terrific application.
Thank you so much, Dave. Any additional comments?
I enjoyed reading about the diversity of the board members. Some of these applications we don't get as much detail about board members as we'd like. I liked reading about that. And the one note that I made, and I believe it was in the idea section, and it's a very bold statement, where this organization said they are no longer satisfied with maintaining its current audiences. Bold statement, but again, showing us that they're transitioning to newer places to go, broadening and widening a variety of programming. And so that, again, that was just one of those ones that I wrote down and said, good for you. They also referenced that I think a new corporation's coming into the area, and they're looking forward. I mean, they're looking ahead to what's coming in with the socioeconomic and the multicultural groups that are there and that, are be coming into the area. And they also do address the homeless situation in that community. So again, a good read.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's move over to commenting and updating scores. When you're done, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you, and thank you. Great. Finishing up our tour in Kokomo, let's go ahead now to Kokomo Symphonic Society Incorporated. Back to you, Dave.
This is my double. So congrats on the 50th anniversary. That's great to see. Great programming. Just a side note, I love that you're bringing in Alicia Bernash. I went to college with her, was in several productions with her. She's phenomenal. So that's great to see. I love the collaborations and the diversity in the programming. Wonderful. I might have reworded this youth program as an expensive part. I had to read that a couple of times to understand that you're saying that it's affordable. It sounded almost like you were talking about as an insignificant part of your programming. So just a little wordsmithing there, because it's a strong application. I would have liked to have seen the board listed on the website again, and those professional affiliations, just so I understand your governing body. It would have been helpful to know the nature of the partnerships. It's a good list, but I don't know how those partnerships are benefiting your organization. It would be good to know how the board is assisting with your fundraising efforts. And I appreciated the candor in your financial response. Many communities across the country are suffering from this post-pandemic shift of arts dollars going to health and human services and all of that. So I'd urge the organization to think more broadly about new fundraising opportunities that can help in the long run. I think you have an opportunity to enhance your website with some dynamic photography of KSO and the concert experience. So I'll move along to idea. You mentioned an idea process with your board. What is that process? I'd like a little more information there. What has the improvement been? What changes have you made? Some of these statements were made, but there weren't facts to help me get a little more information and understanding about that. A note about diversity and equity programming. A lot of times we think it's done only through free and reduced ticket prices. There's a lot of other ways that we can achieve that as well. So I would like to know, what are you doing programmatically to attract diverse audiences? And what is the marketing and outreach to these communities and the follow-up, and who's doing that work, and how often is it occurring? That follow-up piece is really important. Are you reaching back out to them after one of these concerts to invite them to attend again, those sort of things? You mentioned an outreach concert for Juneteenth, terrific. I think it's time for the board to create an idea committee and commit itself to the process. There's a lot of we may need to or suggestions for changes that sometimes can read almost like a wish list instead of here's, we're going to commit to it and do it. So I think the time is now for the board to really think about sort of creating a committee and putting a plan together and sort of moving through that. And I'd encourage the organization to do some strategic planning in this area. What are you going to do and how are you going to do it? Why are you doing it? I think those would be important to talk about. Artistic quality. I think it's good to know that you're surveying your audiences. How is that data informing future programmatic decisions? I think that would have been good to have. I appreciated the information about the music lessons you provide to students. How many students are served? That would be good to know. I think it'd be great if you could put a few snippets of concerts added to your website or Facebook page, just to give us a little hint of what we can see or experience at a concert. And finally, under community engagement, you mentioned your connecting events. I'd like more information on that. What are those events? How often do they happen? And you said you're involved in speaking engagements. For whom, where, when, how often? A little more information there would have been helpful. I guess overall, I needed a little more information on your outreach initiatives here. I saw the music trivia event at Sun King. That's terrific. Are there other programs like this? This is a good partnership that could probably be strengthened and grown to assist you in your programming and audience growth. So you're doing a lot of great things. I think you're ready for that next step, really, to increase your audience scope and size through some idea work. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just add one more comment about the idea section. That is, again, my panelists are learning, my fellow panelists are learning I'm a very rubric person. So I'm going through and I couldn't actually find an answer to the B prompt where you describe the audiences, age groups, identities, income levels. You know, the narrative here is clearly labeled section A, B, C, D. But then that second prompt B to describe the audiences, correct me if I'm wrong, to my colleagues, I just don't think it was there. So just going back perhaps in next year's application and just making sure you add a paragraph or two to satisfy that particular prompt. But it's worth saying I thought generally everything else was there, and I was able to give credit for answering each question.
I just have one comment. It's good to see that they are continuously taking surveys, but I don't think they made mention. It'd be nice to see if this group is surveying their artists and their performers to get feedback. And I did like the diversity amongst the board, having both arts advocates and business members. That's about my only comment.
Thank you. Let's head over now to updating comments and updating any of the scores. Thank you. Thank you. Great. That sounds good. So we are in the midpoint of the application review right now. So how about we take and plan for a break for a 5-minute break? Let's convene back at, let's do 33 past the hour. Sounds great. Thank you. Welcome back to the Indiana Arts Commission's Arts Organization Grant Panels Review for Region 4. The last application review was Kokomo Symphonic Society for those who are joining us now. We will head out now a bit west now to Lafayette with the Lafayette Citizens Band, and our reader will be Jeff.
The Lafayette Citizens Band, a long history of programming with a solid reputation. That says a lot about the integrity of this group by making prospective musicians apply for the positions in the band. The music offered is diverse, patriotic, marches, Latin tunes, show tunes, folk music, and free weekly performances. A lot to be happy about. Side-by-side performances, those encourage me, getting the youth to come in. Now, I like how the students have to be nominated by their music teachers to be part of that program. I like that the conductor takes time to give talks and a little music theory in between the performance pieces. I have no doubt that this group is treasured amongst the community. The $25,000 in support they get from the city shows a commitment by the city to this group, a big commitment. That's like over 30% of their entire budget. This group is obviously an asset to the city, Park and Rec Department, all partner with them to accommodate them on their move to a new venue. The school corporation also values this group by allowing them to have free rehearsal space. So I give this group credit for being inventive with the chair sponsorship program. They describe it as a large campaign drive, but it would have been a little bit more, I would have liked more to see what their expectation is, a little more details, what kind of numbers they expect to see with that program. An idea, this group has been providing concerts for 181 years. They want to bring in a wider audience, and it is written here that the group wants to see more of a variance in ages. Again, we don't really get a lot of detail from the group about how they're going to get this or how they're going to make it happen. They say, we continue to seek ways. Well, share what some of those ways are. What are some of your plans to get to that wider audience? Live streaming, that's indeed a great way to reach patrons who have limited mobility, or folks who can't afford to come out. But it seems to me like the group is relying heavily on this new facility. It's going to bring in this underserved audience. It sounds like the board is supposed to come up with a plan to address diversity. Again, I didn't really see a real plan. Hopefully the new venue will bring in this new portion of the audience they're looking at. They want to boost their advertising, signage, and want to work with 2 television stations locally to help achieve some of these goals. That's a good place to start. I wish there was more information about the successful diversity concert they did last year. What did they learn? What worked? What didn't work? What would you do differently? In the area of artistic education, high school night, an excellent program, a great example of outreach, education to the youth, a great opportunity for young musicians to work with paid musicians. The master class, where they bring in a guest artist whose key is to improve the quality and the skills of their performers. Excellent. Composition competition. Oh, look, I said it. Offers a cash prize and allows the piece that wins to be performed. Maybe this is one that could be tweaked a little bit. Maybe emphasize minority composers or people who live with disabilities. Take an existing program and tweak it a little bit, and it could address some of those idea issues. I like the plan to promote the band, the promotions, the marketing, where they get members and they highlight them and their talents. It connects the people who attend along with the players in the band. The confidence and the skill this group has, they say they're prepared for a concert just after a 2-hour rehearsal. This is again, a very professional group that's ready to go. In the area of community engagement, direct feedback from concert goers is one of the best ways to hear from your patrons. There's talk about using social media to gather feedback, but again, no real numbers on what their expectations are or what they put in the narrative. Using board members to garner support from community shows, and that's a commitment that shows the board members are committed to the organization. And I like how one business can be the featured key sponsor for that evening. Again, a key sponsor, a highlight for one of those patrons. This organization understands the power of collaboration by working closely with animal groups, the Civic Youth Theater, the Purdue musical groups they talk about, and the plans for doing runouts to small festivals and to other events. That helps bring this band into those circles. But they need a plan that needs to be formed, and how they can keep that conversation going.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Any additional comments?
Sure. I would just add 2 comments for this is a strong application, but just 2 comments to consider for potential improvement. The first for me came under the organizational excellence. And forgive me, I'm just scrolling here again. There it is. Just to make sure you're hitting every prompt. So for example, it asked about board committee structure and budget size, and both of those were unanswered. So just again, making sure you're hitting all those prompts, and then to echo Jeff a bit in idea about describing your audience. You described who was in your audience. You said families, military personnel, etc. But do you have any kind of demographic data, any percentages, just anything to help me understand who is there and who isn't? So, is your audience skewing mostly to older patrons or younger patrons, or just what kind of trends are you seeing? And that would help me, again, as somebody who is just learning about your organization, really get a picture of who is in your audience.
Just a couple of quick comments. Jeff had a thorough review, and I agreed with his assessment. Under organizational excellence, I loved the simple statement, "We matter." I thought that was great for, just a great thing for them to say. And I absolutely loved the board profiles on the social media channels. That was terrific. Highlighting the board members, talking a little about who they are, and all of that was great. Then under artistic quality, I appreciated that there were some snippets of performances on social media channels so I could hear some of the playing. That was great. And finally, under community engagement, the partnerships with animal shelters and youth theater groups and all that Jeff mentioned is terrific. That's really great. And you talk about sponsorships and advertising by local businesses is great. These are more transactional relationships though. So I would encourage the organization to think of, can you dig deeper with these organizations? Are there broader collaborations that would benefit both organizations? Some of that outside of the box thinking that you're doing with some of your programming and other events could really help deepen those relationships, maybe put some more money into the organization and help you broaden those audiences. But a strong application from an organization that has been around a very, very long time and doing great work in the community.
Great, thank you all. Let's go over to update any comments or scores, and then thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one. Thank you. Great. Moving on, we're heading up to the Lafayette Symphony Incorporated. Our reader is Alex.
Okay, thank you. So starting off with organizational excellence, I thought this section overall was very thorough and thoughtful. So thanks for all the great information here. So not to sound like a broken record, but when I review applications, the biggest thing for me is, did you answer the prompt? And I felt like each section of it did. I thought that was true, that most of the prompts were answered, except in the financial section. It asks for your budget size, which wasn't included. And I would have perhaps liked to hear a little more about why the organization is experiencing some of its financial challenge. So it certainly mentioned the pandemic shutdowns, but I'm just wondering if now that we're, close to 2 or 3 years following the actual shutdowns, if the organization is experiencing any other difficulties other than prolonged effects of COVID. And maybe it is just prolonged effects of COVID. But just I felt I wanted that just explained perhaps a little more or in a little different way. So certainly no, huge points taken off or anything, but just a gentle reminder to return to that prompt and make sure you're touching on it. In the idea section, I really liked that idea is a really clear part of your strategic plan, and that you noted that here. I just think that was really strong to include. And I thought the application did a good job here about talking about how idea is really ingrained into each aspect of the organization, from its personnel to its programming and so on and so forth. My only note for just potential improvement in this part, again, there's 5 different prompts, and maybe just dividing up your answer so that I can just kind of follow along in order. I enjoyed the answers overall, and I was able to piece together your answer for each of the different prompts, but maybe just a suggestion in the future to add some paragraph breaks or to label the different prompts A, B, C, D. So just to help and maybe that's just a me problem, just to help me follow on a little more. In artistic quality, I thought the answers were just fine and really proved for me that the symphony certainly produces high quality programming. You talked a bit about the musical director search, and you mentioned that you found someone and there's now a new music director. I wanted to know more about that person. So it would have been great to just read a little bit more here about that individual, what are, their education, qualifications, and etc. Just to boost the section a little bit and add some credibility to that person, who I'm sure is very, very credible. And finally, in community engagement, I like that the organization is putting an emphasis not only on collecting feedback from patrons that already go to the symphony, but also those that don't yet engage with the organization through those listening sessions. So I think that's very strong, and I believe it's working for you. So I thought the answers were really clear, concise, and compelling here. So overall, I thought this was a really fine application with lots of merit and great information. I just offered a couple of suggestions for your consideration, but it otherwise was a strong application for me, and just wishing the organization best of luck.
Thank you, Alex. Additional comments from Jeff or Dave?
I'll go. In the area of community engagement, I like the idea of using the Music Advisory Task Force. Other things I like seeing was, in one section, they talk about reaching 5,000 students from like 14 different counties, good numbers to see. I was excited in the front section, they talked about the nightclub series. Again, nice diverse programming. This wasn't mentioned in their narrative, but on their website, they do show they have an open position for a vice president.
Thank you.
Jeff, good points there that you just made. The nightclub series, I thought was great. Wonderful. I noted that you have a nice cash reserve balance, which is great to see, and that the organization has an endowment. Congrats on that. And I noted that there is a separate board to manage that endowment. It would be nice to have a little more information on how those boards work together and who makes up that board, just so we can understand some of the financial prowess of the leadership of that group, so that we understand how that functions. A lot of great response. This was a well-written application with a lot of great detail about the programs that they're doing. Very personal side note here. I love the internship program, especially with DePaul. That's my alma mater. Go Tigers. And I also love that the symphony is taking a leadership role in bringing other cultural organizations together. This is a great way that the organization is sort of taking, that sort of keystone type of organizational leadership approach. I would like to know how you're engaging with your local art service agency, the Arts Federation. That would be good to know, and what's that pipeline look like? But it will be exciting to see the new director take the podium and continue to lead this terrific organization. Bravo on all that you've accomplished. This is a really strong application.
Fantastic. Panelists, please take this moment now to update any comments or scores and thumbs up when you're ready for the next one. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Dave. Up next is Logansport Arts Association, and we're back to you, Dave.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, it just takes me a minute to switch screens and make it bigger so I can read my notes. Okay, the Logansport Art Association, under organizational excellence. Again, longevity here, 112 years. Phenomenal. Good description of the programs. I appreciated the detail that was provided in this section. I think it might be time to rename or reimagine the diversity show. It seems like we're maybe just pigeonholing that activity into one exhibition. So I would encourage the organization to think about how you would expand that and transform, and how this would transform the organization if diversity was found in all of the exhibitions. So just a sort of a challenge for the organization. I'd like more information, I guess, on how the shows are selected, how the artists are selected. Again, who is making those decisions, who's curating the exhibitions. A little more information there would have been helpful. Smart use of interns, I think that's great. And a thorough explanation of your leadership roles. Thank you for that. Under idea, let's see, it would be good to know the specific outreach efforts you have made to these communities. Is the programming and outreach ongoing, or is it based on a single show or exhibition? Who's responsible, and how do you know if you're successful? Some more information there would have been helpful. The outreach to elder care facilities is terrific. And another thought was, what might these partnerships with the underserved communities that you identified look like? What are you thinking about there? And how are you programming for these diverse groups? What are you programming? How often is it provided? Needed some more details and thought behind that. Under artistic quality, I guess I'd like to know more about how the artworks for a particular show are chosen. Again, who's deciding? Where are you sourcing your artists? How do they hear about this opportunity? That would be important to know. I'd like to have known a little bit more about the classes that you offer and the qualifications of the teachers offering that instruction. And it would have been helpful to know a bit about your venue. I'm not familiar with your organization, so I don't know where and how the work is displayed, the square footage, classroom availability, that sort of stuff would be helpful to know. Finally, under community engagement, I have to admit I was disappointed in the response here. I thought to myself, here's where they're really going to shine. Here we go. But there was very little information provided. Surely there are a lot of efforts made by the organization to involve school-age children and their families in the exhibitions and programs. That would have been great to know. Similarly, you indicated earlier that you participate in activities in your city. Well, what are those activities? How do you engage? Why is that important to your organization? Earlier, you talked about the networking opportunities that your board members provide. Here was the chance to expand upon that and provide more information about how that work happens. It's clearly important to your organization. So it would be good to know how it generates donors, teachers, artists, members, et cetera, for your organization. I would have liked to know more about the partners that you do have and how they support your organization. The Toastmaster example is a good one, but I would have liked a lot more information here. And this is, finally, I'll just say this is a small but mighty organization, and I applaud your many efforts at bringing art to the community. And I would encourage you to think more deeply about strategic partnerships that can help leverage the work that you're doing already and create opportunities with new segments of the community that can help your organization grow.
Great, thank you, Dave. Additional comments from Jeff or Alex? Okay, hearing, Alex?
Sure, my apologies. I just wasn't quick enough. Just a couple of quick comments for this application. And I'm very much in agreement with what has been said so far. In organizational excellence, I thought the answer to the prompt that asks, why is it important? Why is your work important? Could have just been expanded a little more. Again, I mean, in the answer, and forgive me, just scrolling. We strive to include art for all diverse groups, as well as help beautify our surroundings. Art and creativity separate us from the animals and provide beauty in the world was a fun sentence. But again, what do those who actually participate in your programs get from that? You know, what skills is the art and culture adding to people's lives here, other than beautifying surroundings? So just a little I think expansion here would have helped this answer be a little more impactful. And just a little comment just for the application overall, just a little bit of proofreading is needed. Couple typos, missing punctuation, and that's really not a big deal for me at all, but I just put that out there as a a comment for potential improvement. For example, your very last response, the sentence ended with a period and then a comma. So I was like, oh shoot, I hope they didn't accidentally cut their answer, because as my colleague said, I was hoping for more information in this section about community engagement. So when it ended with that comma, I was like, oh, I hope there's more. And then when I scrolled down, there was nothing. So just a little bit of proofreading, I think would help this application in the future.
I just have a couple comments. I don't like backing up, but I was reading the answer in the first section and I had to back up. I got lost in the description of the a little bit. They were describing a volunteer board, then within like the same sentence, they used the word volunteers. So I didn't know if they were talking about the board or if they were talking about a large group of people who are, part of the organization who volunteer. So I felt I had to back up a few times. Again, I think the punctuation maybe has gotten me there. And I really like the big mug project that they talked about, working with cancer patients. And again, in the area of community engagement, to me, it just kind of felt like the answer that we got was almost an extension of what they were talking about in the artistic and education component.
Thank you. Let's move on to additional comments in your application or updating the scores. Thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Alex. Moving now to Frankfort, Indiana. Let's go with Onstage Foundation Incorporated, doing business as the Red Barn Summer Theater. Our reader is Alex.
Okay, thank you. The Red Barn Summer Theater. Great. Okay, so organizational excellence. So in your response to the B prompt, where it asks you why the programming is important, which seems to be kind of a common theme in my feedback, I'd love to just have you expand here more. So the prompt is asking about purpose and need and impact, and your application provided just two kind of brief sentences here that kind of touched on those things, but again, I just encourage you to use this as your opportunity to brag to us about why you do is so important and the impact, because we don't necessarily know that yet. I can infer that from your application, but spend some time here to brag about it. What do those people get who participate in your programming? What skills does it develop? So on and so forth. Why does being involved in theater matter for any age? These are just some examples I think could strengthen this section. In idea, I really appreciated the honest answers here. I think it's encouraging that the conversations about idea are happening and that your organization is starting to see that needle move on some progress. So for future applications, I think your answer to the B prompt could be expanded. I understand that you aren't currently tracking any data about your audience, but I think understanding who is in your audience and who isn't will prove to be really critical for your organization's growth. So maybe implementing some data tracking or other methods to quantify that could be helpful. So I found the answers in this section we're a little short and kind of brushed over the topics, but I'd love some expansion here. to really get to know your thoughts on these important topics more. In artistic quality, I was actually wondering if part of your response to this section actually didn't make it into the application. I was, wondering, oh, shoot, did they forget to copy and paste a paragraph over? So what I read was a short paragraph for this section, and I just didn't find it really sufficiently answered the prompt. So again, I'd encourage you to consider grant writing as your chance to brag and tell us all the cool stuff you're doing, and really take every possible space or character count that you need to accomplish that. I always err on the side of providing too much information as long as it relates to the question versus not providing enough and wanting more. So unfortunately, I just couldn't give full credit for answering all the questions here as all the questions weren't answered, but this is a clear area that can be improved in the future. And in community engagement, kind of the same thing happened. I was just wondering if you ran out of time or steam on, this application. And just in general, these last two sections, I think suffered from just some short answers. So just to reiterate, this application has merit. It has some areas for improvement as well. And I would just suggest really committing next time to go back and make sure that some clear and thorough and really compelling answers exist for each question asked in this application. I thought all in all, it's really clear that your organization is doing good work and provides impact. And I can infer that from your application and the website and so on and so forth. But really, it needs to be here in this application written out for us. So I would just encourage you to kind of go back to the drawing board and just reframe really how you're telling that story so that it both hits on all of the criteria, but is also compelling in a way that makes me as a panelist say, oh, this organization is nailing it. They know exactly what they're doing. And then I can give you credit for having a home run application.
Thank you, Alex. Additional comments from Jeff or Dave?
I will echo Alex's great review of this application. Under organizational excellence, beautiful facility. I loved on the website seeing the photos of the theater. I mean, very, very impressive. I like that the board committees also include non-board members. I think it's a great way to expand the leadership of the organization and sort of test out new board members. A lot of smart thinking there. Strong volunteer base. So that really speaks to the passion that people have for this organization. And I love the addition of the music before the performances. I think that's terrific. It's a great way to add, other performing artists. I would have liked a little more information here. How many patrons come, how the art is selected, those sort of things. But I really appreciated reading that. Under idea, these first two sections, I was with you. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is an organization that is firing on all cylinders. So I loved, as Alex said, the candor of the response here. Your board is definitely asking the right questions. The check out a ticket program is brilliant. Congratulations to you. I just think that is so smart. I'd like a little more information about how the program is marketed and to whom. I also love the mentoring program. I thought that was really strong. And I love that you're targeting the Hispanic community. That's really great. I think you should track the age, race, income, etc. Of your audiences. I think it's time for this organization to do an audience survey that you put in the program that includes this information. I think you'll be surprised at how many people would actually fill those out, and the info that you can learn about your audience, I think would really help you with your marketing and some of your programmatic choices as you move forward. And then we sort of fall off the cliff. And I have to say, I was really disappointed in these last two answers. And I thought too, gosh, they must have just either run out of time or they had a computer glitch and information wasn't brought over to this. And I won't beat a dead horse here, but I noted in both of these sections that my comments, I wrote more than you did in the application. And that's a problem. I think it's a real missed opportunity here. because I was so wowed by your application in the beginning, and I thought, man, this is an organization that is just firing on all cylinders. And you didn't allow me to have that opportunity to sort of, close the loop on that. So I just hope that it was, this one time and maybe something happened. But this is clearly an organization that's doing a lot of great work in the community, and you've got a really loyal audience and volunteer base, and that's all really, really great work. So I encourage you to take a look at that, and I know next year's application will be more competitive in these last two areas of questioning.
Thank you, Dave.
I have nothing to add. Those two gentlemen covered it all.
Perfect. Let's move over then to adding any comments to the application and updating any scores if needed. Thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Dave. Up next is Prairie Arts Council. Our reader is Jeff.
The narrative that received in the first Community Excellence, the narrative seems to be really much in line with what their mission is. The variety of programmings they offer, photography, art exhibits, quilts, rugs, baskets, the alternative school programs, music in the alley, the mural artists, all a great variety of programming. This is one of the best feel-good reads that I had in these 18 applications. I love how community engagement is part of the group's mission as well. The list of opportunities and the planned events is well organized, varied in the community, and geared towards a diverse group of participants. Art Camp seems to be what goes on for 26 years. It seems to me that's the solid foundation or the backbone of this organization, probably the signature event and the purpose of starting the Prairie Arts Council. The applicant not only seeks funders to pay for the overhead and pay for programming, but they also provide financial support for other community arts groups and musical programs. The applicant gives detailed explanations of the service area. This group seems to be very much in tune with their constituents. The list of partners is as diverse as the programs that the group presents. I appreciate how the applicant stressed the importance of each program and especially the membership show. I like that, how each participant really gets connected to the community. Using art as a way to connect with kids at the alternative school. It's not a new thing, but I feel this group is maximizing the efforts they're putting into it. There isn't much about this application that I doubt. I don't read it shaking my head going, oh, good luck with that, or I don't think that's going to happen. I knew that the alternative school program, of course, would be described and show up in the idea section, which is fabulous. For a group that seems to sit heavy with photography and graphic arts and crafts, the Musician Network adds much more to what's going on with the Prairie Arts Council. The work with disabled adults, the Valley Oaks mental health shows, this all lets me know this application is addressing idea. Art Camp is expanding into Newton County. I want to go to Newton County. It is good to see this applicant display goals in relation to idea activities, and I applaud the notion of working with assisted living facilities. That's a group that I feel sometimes is overlooked. Artistic education. How impressive is it to read survey response ratios need to be increased? Increasing pay for artists also goes a long way. Planning with city officials to look at utilizing already existing accessible sites. Yay. This is common sense, straightforward thinking. It's good to see numbers regarding income and ethnicity. This tells me the group knows their neighborhood. It was good to see board members listed, have some brief bios, experience in promotion, experience in teaching, interior design from Iowa State. This is one of my favorite places next to Newton County, the state of Iowa. Community engagement. I really like seeing the committee structure. I liked reading this entire application. I felt it was put together very well. It's wise to attend with the Chamber of Commerce meetings, go to connect with the the Jasper Newton Foundation. And while some groups might want to fit initiatives into their programs, the Prairie Arts Council makes it a point to ask about what they can do differently to address other initiatives, seeking ways to make a change. That's a really healthy attitude. I love the wine label making contest. The winery now is one of their largest donors. Yay, go wine. It's good to see a quarterly electronic newsletter. The partnership with the Newton County Economic Development again shows the reputation this organization has. Assisting other groups with their fundraisers, like the Valley Oaks Mental Health Group, shows that this organization is about community impact.
Thank you, Jeff. Additional comments from Dave or Alex?
Sure, I would just add one new comment, and not, I suppose not directly related to the scoring, but actually about your organization's mission statement. So I see here the Prairie Arts Council's mission is promoting the visual, literary, and performing arts. And then you provided a lot of great context, more about what that means. And then towards the bottom of that response, you provided the 3 primary goals, what you actually do. So I wonder if there is an opportunity to kind of revamp your mission statement a little bit to include a little more about what you do, and this might just be a personal thing, but the first thing I read on all of these applications is the mission statement. And I want to be able to get from that, what do you do? How do you do it? Why, maybe who you serve a little more. But again, none of this factored into my scoring. It was a great application. But I would just suggest just some food for thought, maybe a revamp of your mission statement. So it really kind of inspires me as the first sentence that I read about your organization, which is certainly full of merit, since I've learned that from the rest of the application.
A couple of quick comments. What a wonderfully attractive website and logo. I was just really charmed by what I saw. So congrats on that. Something that we haven't talked a lot about, I think it's really smart to focus on search engine optimization for your website and some of the marketing and advertising you're doing. That's great thinking. Good for you. Let's see, under idea, I wrote, your response to this section was detailed, responsible, and appropriate. This is long work to open your organization up to welcome all community members, and you're to be commended for the steps that you've taken and the leadership your board has shown. It's clear that this is something that the organization is passionate about, so I appreciated that. Under artistic quality, I really appreciated the video gallery tour so that I could get a taste of what it's like to see an exhibition there. Not many groups do that, and I think it's so important to give us sort of a firsthand view, especially if we're not familiar with your organization. A suggestion for the next video, though, as much as I loved it, slower camera work maybe, and not using that fisheye lens because it distorted some of the artwork, and I really wanted to pay attention to it because some of it was quite beautiful. But it's wonderful that you have that kind of a digital asset on your website, so congratulations. You mentioned an artist directory. I didn't see that on the website. I would have loved to have seen that. And finally, I love the artist opportunity section on your website. Great for you, great job. So overall, this was a great application to read, an organization that's doing phenomenal work. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Let's take this moment now to update any comments or scores. Thumbs up when you're ready to move to the next one. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex. Moving on, it's the Prairie Preservation Guild. Alex is a reader.
Okay, thank you. So the Prairie Preservation Guild. So in organizational excellence, in the response for the A prompt, what does the organization do? Just fine. I found the answer a little general. For instance, the prompt asks about specific activities, programs, and services. I think you mentioned your primary program and then stated that the organization also provides other arts education and experiences, but then really doesn't quite elaborate on what those were. So, I'm just trying to, it's my first time getting to know your organization here. So don't be afraid to spell all this out. And when you make claims like that, just having examples to back it up. And just, again, to make sure you're hitting on each prompt. So again, when Part D asks for your budget size, just make sure you include your budget size. In the idea section, I appreciated the very specific example about increasing accessibility to those with visual and auditory impairment. I did wonder, in the final prompt of this section, you described the demographics of the overall county, I believe, which was helpful, and something we don't actually see in many of the applications. But then I wanted to know more about who actually fills your seat from your overall county demographics. So do you see any trends or generalizations about the people who are coming to your shows? Who are you attracting and who aren't you attracting? So certainly no big points taken off or anything here, but I just think this was an area which would benefit just from offering some more examples to really solidify your answer here. In artistic quality, I thought this was a great response. Could have benefited from some additional examples. Your example about Jay Warren was very good and strong, and I thought that added a lot of credibility and was compelling. So I just don't be afraid to give us more of those great examples. I did love that the organization is forming a teen advisory board to try and get more of that age group in the door. I think perhaps every organization should do that, should have different age group advisory boards to hear that impact. So that's just great. In community engagement, I thought this was a great section. I appreciated your answer to the second prompt here that asks about the mutually beneficial partnerships. You made the claim that the partnerships are beneficial, and then there was a list of 4 really great examples, and I appreciated all the examples. And I would just encourage you to flesh out some other portions of your application with that same level of detail in the examples to really drive your point home. So overall, excellent writing here with just a few personal suggestions for how I think you can even bring that writing to a higher level next time around. But just thanks so much for letting me learn about your organization here.
Thank you. Additional comments from Jeff or Dave?
I'll pipe in. Great review, Alex. I agree with that. Overall, I thought this was a good application. There was some good detail provided, some things that you're doing remarkably well. There's some really good social media engagement. There's some really creative thinking about some of your ancillary programming that it's around the films and all of that. I really appreciated that. The thing that took me, I had to read and read and read to just wrap my head around was what was part of the film contract and what was part of the arts engagement activities that are surrounding this. And as a grant maker myself, it made me go, uh-oh, how much of this is eligible for funding through certain things or not? So I think it probably, in future applications, if you can make that demarcation line even stronger for us, so that we get like, okay, this is really what we're focused on here. I don't know. For me personally, I just kind of struggled with that. But it was a well-written application. There was a lot of detail provided, but I think that firewall could be a little more clearly described, which would help me understand a little bit better about what you're trying to do.
Thank you, Dave.
I just have a couple comments. I love those front doors on the theater. Those are beautiful. My comments also are in idea. It's tough. This applicant does recognize they're in a community that doesn't seem real open about the idea of our idea, or maybe is lost as to how to address it. If the locals aren't keen to accepting it because the applicant uses the term, we have to chip away at this, bringing it to the forefront. It's great that they acknowledge it. It's tough to see that maybe they recognize it as a struggle. I just wanted to say, based on the economy of the area, that, it's a priority to keep your ticket and concession prices affordable. And I think they do lack a clear identification of what group or groups they're targeting when it does come to addressing IDEA.
Thank you all. Let's move on to comments and updating the scores. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Dave. Great. Moving from Fowler back to Lafayette, let's head now to Robert and Ellen Hahn Museum of Indiana Arts. Our reader is Dave.
Okay, the Hahn Museum of Art, under organizational excellence. Again, I'm going to harp on a no border staff listing on the website. I think that's important to include. And again, I'd add those affiliations so we understand the leadership of your board. This is a mission, we've been sort of talking about missions today, and I want to chime in on that. I didn't take any points off for this, but I think it's an important sort of flag for this organization to think about. You use the word protect in the mission. And that really stuck out to me. Protect in what way? So you say you are preserving the art, so that's great. So protection from what or from whom? I think that might be open to some interpretation and maybe some negative interpretation. And I know that's not what you are intending. So I think maybe it's time to relook at that mission statement and make sure that the language that you're using is inclusive and doesn't maybe cause anybody to feel a certain kind of way. So having said that, wonderful, varied programming for all ages. I was really impressed to see that range of relevant and timely programs that you're doing. I noted that the organization indicates that approximately 2,200 came in through individual tours. Is there any way to get more precise with that number? You say approximately, and I know that tracking is difficult, but understanding our audiences these days is more important than ever before. So I would just urge you to really get crisp with those audience tracking numbers. I was pleased to see the Kwanzaa celebration themed to the principles of Kwanzaa. That was really great. Let's see. Congratulations on the CAP grant. That's phenomenal. I had a question about the budget. I noticed that the FY23 budget is a reduction from the FY22 budget, yet the cash reserve listed at the top of the grant was $249,146. So this is a drop. So I wanted some more information about that decline and how the board and staff is addressing it. So a little more information there would have been helpful. In the ideas section, I appreciate the inclusion of Black Indiana artists. I noted that none of those artists are mentioned on the website. So this is an opportunity for you to, take that important step and include them right along with the names of some of the other artists that you are promoting and celebrating. Let's see. Oh, it's important to begin or increase efforts to incorporate the programming events and inclusion of artists of color in regular programming. For example, how can you build on the Tea Ladies event for Kwanzaa? I think that's a great event, but how can you expand that even further? Is there programming that can happen throughout the year, not just around Kwanzaa or Juneteenth or something like that? Again, a reminder that free and reduced tickets aren't the only path to outreach and audience diversification. So what are the plans for programming that are representative of communities of color? How are you addressing the concerns that you mentioned about those with disabilities? That would be important for us to understand. And I, again, would encourage the organization to think more broadly about idea work. And it's difficult work. We've said that today, but don't stop, keep going. You have much to celebrate and share with the community and ways that you can engage more folks there. Under artistic quality, thanks for the information about the acquisition policy for permanent collection. That was really helpful for me to understand that. As I've said throughout the day, it's important for us to know who's selecting the artists and the works for such things as the Generations Art Sale. Important to make sure that the committee is representative of the community that you hope to serve. There is no question that the facility, the grounds, the collection, and the programming is exquisite and of the highest quality. The museum and the collection is truly an Indiana gem. So I didn't want that to go unnoticed and unrecognized. And you all should be congratulated on your pursuit of excellence and artistic quality. It is clear throughout the application and website and your social media presence that it's important to the organization and something that you celebrate. Finally, under community engagement, I appreciate hearing how the feedback is collected and used in future programming decisions. I would encourage you to build on this. Can you formally survey your visitors? Have you done a member survey? Those sort of things would be good. Your artwork loan program with the Community Foundation and Black Cultural Center is great. When I read Black Cultural Center, I stopped. You are sending art there. How are you getting them to the Han? This is an incredible organization and an opportunity to forge a new strategic partnership here, deepen that work so that there is audiences coming from both communities and enjoying what each other is doing. Nice to see the support of other cultural organizations utilizing the Han as a community gathering place. I would like to know how you're following up with all those that are attending. Are you collecting information from them, sharing mailing lists, providing them with a return incentive? So you have a lot of great people coming in through the doors that are new to the organization. The challenge is how do you get them back, right? So a little information there would have been helpful. Finally, two more points. I love the inclusion of the Garden Guild. Art and wellness is certainly the buzz right now. So how can you capitalize on that and increase your audiences? And finally, I'll just say this is a phenomenal organization with unlimited potential to grow audience and influence. The time is now to do some strategic thinking around that point, but congrats on all your success. This is a phenomenal organization.
For the comments, Dave. Additional comments from Jeff or Alex?
I'll go. I agree with Dave that it's a phenomenal organization, a gem in the state of Indiana, high quality. I struggled with, and you alluded to it, that, dealing with inclusion, diversity, equity, and access isn't just, trying to make low cost or free programming. It was good to see works brought in from minorities and women. It was all mentioned, and as you said too, the website doesn't really mention it. I think they make great use of their ice cream day and Halloween to let families in the area know this is a family-friendly facility that welcomes young people. Great to see the different ethnic groups come in and help design and decorate within the mansion. They do recognize that they want to create a diverse board of directors, but there's really no plan mentioned or put in place here. I like the fact that they recognize that they are looking for a paid marketing person, again, realizing the importance of that. There isn't really much input on community engagement, input from like the community itself or from partners that they have.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Let's hit that time now for adding additional comments and updating any scores. Thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Dave. Let's move on to Wabash Valley Youth Symphony. Our reader is Jeff.
80 young musicians doing 3 concerts that are 60 to 90 minutes long. That's a whole lot of work. I like how the 3 winners of the concerto competition get their choice of the piece of music that the group's going to perform. I got a little lost on some of the narrative. Being a central node in a large network, that whole paragraph, I don't know, got a little muddy for me. I understand the organization is an asset to the community, and they're recognized for their quality. And I'll leave it at that. But like I said, I got a little trouble getting through there. It's good to see a goal in the area of increasing their funds and making sure the conductor is being paid a fair wage. I Really didn't care for the ABC listing. I would prefer to see sentence form, paragraph form, other than kind of a list of things in the narrative. Plus, I believe there were 2 C's and no D. That beginning section, to me, it lacked a good description of their leadership. We don't really know much about the diversity or the qualifications of their board members. Moving on to idea, not much of a mention of, bringing in a more diverse, there is a mention of bringing in a more diverse group of students for the conductor to work with, but there's really no solid numbers or statistics to support that mention of bringing them in. How's that all defined? How is it broken down? It's very good to hear there is a partnership with United Way, encouraging to see that this group went to a session hosted by the Indiana Arts Commission on the subject of IDEA. I know it's hard. It's really hard for an organization with a budget this size to get a paid staff or volunteer staff to take time and go out and attend workshops. I encourage this group to keep moving in that direction, embracing IDEA, calling up the Indiana Arts Commission, asking for some help. That's commendable. I used to call them a lot. It usually wasn't, I wasn't asking for help. Good numbers are presented in the Bear Family Resource Center piece. I like seeing that. Artistic education. This organization holds very high standards by having musicians re-audition every year. The concerto competition instills a commitment of excellence to young musicians who start as, in junior high level. Much of this section, I felt, was spent describing the experience and the qualities of their newly hired conductor. We could have heard more detail about the events and the activities that they do. In the area of community engagement, there is mention of community partnerships, but there's really no detail about who these patrons are, what the organizations do that help this group grow and gain from it. I think what this section lacks is a description of a plan as to how the Youth Symphony gets feedback from audience members, community partners, educators. It would have been nice to see some details about the demographics of the students and concerns and priorities presented not only by them, but their parents as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Additional comments from Dave or Alex?
I'll jump in really quickly. I like that you don't turn away any student. I think that's really a great thing to do, even those with financial hardship. So it's great that you're thinking about making sure that every student that wants to play can. So that's to be commended. I do note the strong artistic leadership, and I commend the organization for that. This is an organization that's clearly education minded and is doing a lot to make sure that the quality instruction is happening at all levels of the organization. And I just want to commend you. You're a lean organization doing a lot on a small budget. And it's so important for those musicians who may not even have another performing opportunity to have that. And this can really help them in many, many ways, as we've talked about. So bravo for all that work.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in with a couple of final comments. In organization excellence, I really liked you were getting to the point, and the sentence here says the cognitive benefits of music education are widely recognized, et cetera, according to a number of studies. And then it has parentheses XXX, and I didn't know what that meant. I wondered if you meant to go back later and like insert some citations. I am not sure, but thank you at least for putting that kernel in there, because I'm all about, talking about those benefits and the impact. And I just wanted to point out here, at least in my eyes, that thought just came across as a little incomplete. And then just a general comment, I think for the overall application, there were just some prompts that really didn't get hit on in each of the sections. So in organizational excellence, I couldn't find anything really about the board structure. In the idea section, I was missing an answer for the entire B prompt about your audience. I mean, I certainly know your organization's main mission, of course, is to serve the youth, but what about the audience coming to the show? I was just curious to learn more about. In artistic quality, I couldn't find much discussion about an improvement process. And then finally, for community engagement, I kind of was totally missing how data is collected and used. So just a general comment, which I've been repeating a few times, just to make sure you're hitting on all the prompts with some great examples, so that we can give you credit for answering all of those. Thank you.
Thank you all for the comments. Let's make sure to end with the conclusions of comments and scoring. Any updates, and then thumbs up. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Dave. All right, so this concludes the fiscal year 2024-2025 Arts Organization Support Advisory Review Panel for Region 4, Greater Lafayette area. On behalf of the ISD commissioners and our staff, I want to share our gratitude to the panelists for their time and expertise as they review the applications from this region. To our applicants, you will be all notified of the status of your grant application following the June ISC quarterly business meeting. In the meantime, if any of you have any questions, please contact your regional arts partner, Tisha Lee at the Arts Federation. Again, thank you all for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.